Oh. Oh, kena. Okay, hi mom. Let me know what time we start.
We still have 2 more minutes, Lynn, if you want to continue.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Malas. Yo mak, yo ban, yo bujuk. Dalam utuh. Naik beli kau ni. Yo be punya. Welcome. Oh, yeah.
Oh, you muted yourself.
Mag-start na, Lynn.
Okay. Thank you. Yun.
Okay, don't mute yourself, but you have to start.
Thank you so much, Lynn.
Welcome, ma'am. Na biya ko beta mo ko kan mabuti na kan ni dini ko na mabuti. La kalau ba yun noyo gungal o.
All right, folks. Let me redo the screen share. I'm not sure why it's not sharing sound. Womp womp.
I hear it now.
Okay.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's always a great time to reflect on our past performances in Sindaw. And now that I think about it, we are in a pandemic. Do you think it's still possible for folks to join us, Vivian?
No, it's never late to join. And the pandemic isn't going to stop us from dancing either.
You're right. So why don't we tell folks about what it's like to be part of Kinding Sindaw?
So just a little bit more background about Kending Sindaw. They're an organization that exists to assert, preserve, reclaim, and recreate the traditions of dance, music, and martial arts, in addition to storytelling and orature of the indigenous people of Mindanao, part of Southern Philippines.
Yes, and what's great is that you don't even have to be Filipino to join KS. No matter who you are, where you come from, no matter what your background is, you're more than welcome to join our family. We welcome you with open arms, and there's no membership fee or anything like that. It's totally free to join us as well. We're also a nonprofit 501c3 organization here in New York City, and yeah, we're very much open to whoever wants to learn more about our culture.
Jerome, you went mute.
Oh no, I don't even know where I cut off. Technology needs a little more coffee. But wherever I cut off, just so to sort of sum up, anyone can join us no matter who you are. And I just lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so anyone can join us, and no membership fee, no jazz like that. It's a great time, and we really hope that especially young people can get involved with our work just so that we can continuously preserve oral storytelling as well as cultural traditions so that these things can live long throughout time.
Right. Most recently, we did have an off-Broadway production at La Mama where we are streaming here tonight as well. And in addition to La Mama, we've also danced with Queensborough's Dance Festival. We also had an open house where we did some performances recently. And we're trying to do definitely a lot more, well, web events where we'll be performing in the future. So definitely make sure to connect with us so that if any of those things happen, you're able to check us out then.
All right, so thank you so much, Viv. Without further ado, what are y'all waiting for? Click that like button on Facebook, and we hope to see you in our classes soon. And now, let's get on to the main menu. So, welcome everyone. This is another one of our episodes of Rinayung web series, and today we're going to be talking about Filipino and Black Solidarity. Next slide, please. So before we get into that, what is Rinayung? It's the magical boat of Bantugan in the Maranao epic Durangan. It travels distance, it can fly, dive into the depths of the ocean, carrying many people, magical creatures, and vegetation. And Rinayung itself is a symbol of diaspora, just like us, here in New York and across the world. Next slide. Awesome. And Viv, want to take away with this part?
Before Bev will take away, we just want to announce to everyone that we are resident artists of La Mama. So tonight we are actually in the live Facebook of La Mama, and welcome to La Mama. Welcome to La Mama. My name is Putri Rangkamanis. I'm the artistic director of Kinding Sindaw, and join us tonight. There will be a lot of exciting things. And the Bev will continue.
Great. Thank you for that, Potri. Just to continue, and just a heads up for everyone who is in the Zoom and viewing us also, this is going to be live not only on Kinding Sindaw's Facebook page, but also La Mama tonight. Just as a disclaimer as well, some of the topics that we might be talking about today might trigger some things to some people. And we do encourage that if anything becomes discomforting to anyone, that either me, Jerome, Patty, or Potri is messaged on the side or even during the event, just to bring it to our awareness. We will take in the feedback or comment in consideration of how we go forward with other events that we will put on. And also we, aren't bringing up any topics with the intent of trying to bring discomfort, but if it does happen, we are here so that we can address it. And in addition to that, if there is any comments or questions that you have during any of the events, feel free to leave the comments or questions in the Zoom chat, Facebook chat, and then we'll also look at it, respond either during the event, or if it's later on, we'll get back to it at another time. Also, this is going to be recorded and archived for Kinding Sindaw, just as a heads up for that as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Viv. So let me go ahead and, technology. There we go. Thank you, technology. So what's on the menu tonight, folks? So again, my name is Jerome Valoria. I'm one of your lovely moderators here alongside Vivian Chow and Patty Kilroy, who's doing our behind the scenes work and running our PowerPoint and making things super smooth. We're also going to go into a little bit what Kinding Sindaw stands for. We always love to give a shout out to our funders. And then we have land acknowledgements from Indigenous folks, both here in the United States as well as in the Philippines. And then we're going to get right into it, y'all. We're going to meet Lisa Parker as well as Jonathan. We have set aside of interview questions for both of them. And then we have an open Q&A for folks on the Zoom call, as well as those at home or wherever y'all may be on Facebook viewing this. And then we're going to wrap up the night with some closing announcements as well as upcoming events with our organization. Next slide, please. All right, so before I give a quick thank you to our funders, Pochi, would you like to tell folks a bit more about the mission and vision of Kinding Sindaw? Pochi? Um, Pochi, are you there?
I think she may be on mute.
Okay, hold on.
Now she's not on mute.
There we go.
Now she's on mute again. There we go.
Assalamualaikum. Welcome again, joining us in our 17th series of Rinayung. And well, join us every other week. You traveling with us into the depths of the stories of mostly unwritten stories. And this year, this is dedicated to our heritage as part of the African American lineage. And the rest of the thank you to funders will be going to be read to you by Jerome. Otherwise, I would like to welcome you to Kinding Sindaw that assert, reclaim, preserve, and recreate the ancestral living tradition of the indigenous people of the Philippines. Philippines has a very long story that actually just in the vessel of oral tradition, because it has been there. And when colonists came in 1521, most of the islands were taken by the colonizers, of course, the Spanish colonizers. And in December 10, 1896, USA bought the Philippines under the Treaty of Paris from the Spaniards. Land called Mindanao that was able to continue the sovereignty because it has a very strong governance of the Sultanate. So the culture and tradition we bring here to USA to become part of the cultural, the immigration, the diaspora, and we bring that to you in the most beautiful way. So assert, reclaim, preserve, and join Kinding Sindaw, and you will see how we unfold the beauty of our mission and vision. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Poetry, for that. And now I'd like to give a quick thank you to our funders. First and foremost, the Loida Nicholas Lewis and Reginald F. Lewis Foundation, one of our major supporters since the inception of Kinding Sindaw back in 1992. Without them, we really would not be able to do pretty much all the things that we do today. Secondly, La Mama Experimental Theater Club, located right by NYU on the Lower East Side. Thank you so much for also continuously supporting us since our inception. We've been resident artists at La Mama for many years, especially because Ellen Seward saw something in our art and she wanted to support us in every way that she could. Lotus Music and Dance is also another one of our long-standing supporters. They've actually helped us expand our networks, and also because of Lotus Music and Dance, we were able to meet some of our previous speakers in other Rinayung episodes. We'd also like to give shout outs to the New York City Council, the Howard Gilman Foundation, the New York City DCA or Department of Cultural Affairs, NYFA or the New York Foundation of the Arts, Dance NYC, and Kidney Care of the Treasure Coast. Thank you all so much, Bong Salamat, and we hope that you continue supporting us for our growing work. Next slide, please. And now, Vivian, do you want to take it away with land acknowledgements?
So as Kinding Sindaw is honoring and trying to remember the indigenous groups of the Philippines, we would like to honor the land that we're on right now. So we have Teresa Bearfox with us once again. The land acknowledgement. 1 second, let me spotlight Teresa so everyone can see. And Teresa, whenever you're ready to start, you can.
Okay. Seko sewagwego, wakatsununi, negato igets neskatno, skatne zewagwego. I'm very happy to be here with all of you. And Pochi Nyama again for inviting me. I really love hearing the languages and the dances and the singing. I love it. It uplifts my spirits. And I'd like to thank Kindin Sindaw for sharing your culture with all of us and helping us to preserve all our cultures together. And right now, I'd like to do like a little land acknowledgement in the Mohawk language. That's where I'm from. I'm from Akwesasne. I'm from the Mohawk Nation, Kanyak Kehaga, the people of the Flint. And I'm going to say it in my language where we're going to put all our minds together as one. And we're going to give thanks to the Mother Earth for all she does for us. Agwego aska di te wahwe nuni ne kwa nikula. Dano deitino lados ne yakinistan hunja. Ne eji kat komahage onahoda suma skana aidawa danyosia. He helps provide for us to so that we don't have so much worrying on our minds. And I'd like to share a song that came to me very strongly for the people to help ease our mind that our families are taken care of and that no harm comes to them. And it's called Kayeli Niongwetake. So I'd like to invite everyone to think of their families with a white light of protection around them. And I'm going to do the same for my family while I'm singing the song. Kayeli Niongwetake Owatokan Asquayena wase se atano nane aquachile o waka asquayena wase
Africa.
yo yo ana yo ya hey yo yo ana yo ya hey yo ha yo hana yo ya hey yo ana yo ya hey Kayeli ni un cuenta que yo tocar escuela se se atano nane aquagile awantoka escuela se yo yo ana yo ya hey yo yo ana yo ya hey yo yo ana yo ya hey yo ana yo ya hey Yoko. And I hope everyone's safe and happy out there. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
Shikon, Niawigo, Teresa.
Yo,
Thank you very much. And join us again and again.
okay.
Yes, every time. Okay. And Lynn, can you hear us?
Yes.
All right, you're back on the spotlight again if you like to perform for us again. Thank you.
Okay. Yulafus here in Lake Cebu and Yuki for America, New York. Good morning from Lake Cebu and good evening, America and New York. I am now doing my damsu to call the spirit or the fu of all or the dwata. Hindi so yung kanan ko na nalutano gal hadu kabanik ko na yan. Tanaw na so yung panambang. Yung pun musical instrument sa bali. Mamo na lang legal ng halapon. Nibot yung tanaw na so yung lugar. Yung dua kay. Kumbi. Na yung slowly. Yung tabali, guitar, galo. Sabot na so yung pangalan. Yung ngamli bum tabali bluso. Udah sa unin suwat kayo. Nahila. Nakagaan. Naman ko yung gawin. Ngayon kagaan tanala. Na last na so, yung heart agot. Ma, sudan, naturbulol, kanila, kapunagyan pa. Ang kapilan. Kapabulol, kuem, kukayo, kukadeen, kutana, kulim kade uton, kutanaka, kudalo, tanabaho yung kalabong sa Burhaniyo yung tutulong, hal sa galak daw, benturan na diyan. Isa yung uras kita sa utubela, yung kade daw, hal ba ibaya ko. Kade ang handong, para kasi, kung banu, nagpuntribo.
Maninde tanam kamam uras ni menanam kamam dan bau mensana ukum uku wan miyahad libu kawan maotun fu mam tan bahung gede la doan getuku la roku ya kodung leben ini gitu mekebukun menene tata kelifot madu menen kodok mung ke tebu menen mung kabduk mabe ibu do te kodung gede la do ku umam manen alasan uni tambul manen aswan uni fan gelub Mana nganam ko mam ten bau. Bing malui ve mo gunung mogo tau. Manen mua uni I pagalu. Manen ta bori egi mabului. La do te kadun de mas ayu ke penetian.
Done.
Bong selamat, Lin. Bong selamat. Nga.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone.
Bong selamat.
Thank you.
Terus.
Thank you. Thank you for all those who helped us with line acknowledgement. We do want to start the night with the speaker portion and panelist section now. So for the first speaker we have up is Lisa Parker. Lisa Parker is a writer and medical communication specialist with a PhD in molecular biology. She's originally from Detroit, but Lisa has lived in the Bay Area, New York City, and now she is joining us from London, where she has been living for the past several years. She had joined Kinding Sindaw back in 1996 as a musician and has a background in Western music. And she is also trained as a pianist. She has developed her skills as a kulintang player with kulintang masters such as Linda Banisel and Danny Danangan Caledonia. She is joined with us today to talk about her experience with Kinding Sindaw as well as the value of art as activism. So like I mentioned, this is kind of like a panelist style. So the first question that we have up for Lisa is why she was interested in joining Kinding Sindaw.
Hi, everyone. So thank you very much for that kind introduction. And thank you so much for the land acknowledgements, both from America and from the Philippines, because it's really great to kind of make sure we're grounding ourselves when we're talking about kind of what we do. And I think, so I joined Kinding Sindaw when I first moved to New York, and I think originally I think the main reason why I think I'm unmuted, right?
No, I
So
can hear you.
you can hear me now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the main reason when I first joined Kinding Sindaw, it wasn't really for any big reason. It was, I moved to New York. I didn't have that many friends in New York. I knew two people, and I had a friend in California who knew poetry and was like, oh, you should meet her, but be careful, she'll make you join her dance troupe. And so I was at work on a Saturday, and because I was in the lab still, and she called me. They were performing 3 blocks away from where I was working. And she's like, come on, the sun is out, it's pretty. You've got to come meet some people and explore the life outside of the lab. And she's very persuasive, as you probably all know. And so I walked over and met her and several of the other members of the group, and saw this strange musical instrument, and the drums and the gongs and the vibrant clothes, and I started playing around with the instruments and just kind of fell in love. So that was really my introduction to Kinding Sindaw and the dance troupe. As it was not very like intentional or political, the reason why I joined the group. But one of the things that over the years, through the work that I've done with them, that I've come to realize is how important the organization is for helping, I think, articulate the possibilities of what it's like to exist in an uncolonized way. And I think that is the very act of performing something that is not been part of, that has been created outside of a colonized framework, is in and of itself an act of resistance. It's in and of itself an act of asserting a voice that is often unheard and often suppressed. And I think in that way, I came to realize that the art itself, just performing in any context, would be an act of kind of resistance and an act of really kind of communicating beyond just with words. And so I think for me, I also began to understand like that you're using this art in a way that is actually not simply just to make something pretty for the world, but you're using it to really kind of reclaim and assert a point of view that is one that that refuses to be suppressed. And I think that has a lot of power. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I've stayed a part of the group for so long. I think Kending Sindaw does try to treat the work we do as not about being as being a communal experience and about us working together to create things. And a lot of the dance dramas that we have created over the years have told stories that really kind of speak to the to themes that I think are kind of universal things, resisting oppression, working together, finding unity where you can. And I think those there's a lot of stories that we tell that are part of the tradition of the different tribes in the Philippines. And those stories really kind of allow you to kind of explore some really interesting components of these stories are very particular and specific, but they also have a way of transcending what's going on in a particular region. So it's not just a Tausug story. It is a story of a tribe that's under under duress from the outside influences, which resonates not just with people, that resonates with a lot of different people. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I've been so interested in the work that Kending Sindaw does from the time I joined. It's not just about the art, it's about the way the art is used. That's a very long answer to a very short question. No, sorry.
No, it's good.
I did tell you I could go on. So.
Just to follow up with that, you did mention, how Kending Sindaw helps to share the voices of those who are maybe not spoken about or not known about to the rest of the world, or who are under oppression. But because it is Black History Month over here in America, I did want to ask, how we as Kending Sindaw or Filipinos or just people in general can help to uplift the voices of those who are oppressed, and what we can do to be, I guess, good allies or just help in that sense.
I mean, I think that the stories of, that's a complicated question. I think that one of the things that is important is to really think deeply and listen a lot about kind of what is going on in the world. I think that a lot of times the kinds of systematic institutional racism that exists within the United States is something that I think different ethnic groups may experience a little bit differently. It's not always what happens within different Asian communities is not necessarily going to be the same as what you see in different African American communities or immigrant communities in general. But I think different manifestations of oppression does not mean that you can't connect because we all have that in common. It may present itself differently, but you still fundamentally there's a fundamental connection that I think we all can share in terms of the way we need to fight against systems of oppression. And I think that, and that's, everybody, I mean, white folks too. And I think that it's important to, to be thoughtful about that, right? But at the same point in time, it's like, I think this is the other thing that makes Kending Sindaw a little bit unique, is that because it's speaking through art, I think it can connect in ways that you're not really, it kind of transcends some of the kind of specific textual ways that people often communicate, because you're sharing a musical voice, an artistic voice. And I think sometimes you can connect emotionally before you connect literally, and then you can kind of develop that shared bond together. I mean, without getting, so that's my short answer to that.
No problem. And if anyone has, any questions to follow up with that, or just anything else they would like to ask Lisa, feel free to put it in the chat, and we'll definitely bring that up in the Q&A portion. I do want to, maybe we can ask that later on, Potri. But I do want to spotlight it over to our next speaker. Replace spotlight here.
All right. Hello. So this is our next speaker, Jonathan, who is a queer Black Filipino who has made a name for himself as quote-unquote blasianFMA on various media platforms. He is the creator of podcast This QPOC Life, which is available on Spotify for your listening pleasure. His podcast is centered on the experiences of queer people of color, looking at the world through a multifaceted lens. He is also the creator of a Facebook collective called the Black and Asian Alliance Network, which aims to bring these two communities together in solidarity, unearth commonalities, unlearn racial biases, and fight for equity. Outside these spaces, Jonathan is a tenor with the New York City Gay Men's Chorus and has performed with Quo, the Queer Urban Orchestra. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Jonathan.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. One of the first questions we have for you today, how do you describe your intersectional experience as a Black, Filipino, and queer individual?
Very complicated. And I've been doing the work to navigate that intersectionality for going on 13 years. It all started with, well, I would say the navigation started with a YouTube channel that's blasianFMA, and has expanded into Twitter, Instagram as those things became available, etc. But really just doing videos, and at the time, I think 2008, leaning into both sides of my heritage, having grown up in Southern California, San Diego, with a Filipino mom, and having Lola stay in the house with us, and then having a Black stepfather, then also my father being Black, and then living with him from the age of 9 until after college. It was after college that I was like, okay, I've gone through this many years of life, and at different points of life, people have asked me like, well, what are you? Or like, well, why do you do this? Or why do you believe this? And it really caused me to like look introspectively and try to figure out what it is about my personal experience standing at the intersection of Black and Asian cultures, comparing and contrasting, and showing the world who I am. And then realizing that as time has gone on into 2021, and not only just recently with the past year that was 2020, but a lot of events leading up to that it was necessary to create a space apart from just YouTube that explored the relationships that Black American and all other folks that are descendants of Africa have with Asian folks or different Asian communities. Even just saying that, I've learned through the group, or I've learned to think more critically. We just don't say Asians. There are different people. There are the Filipinos, there are the Koreans, there are the Chinese, there are the Japanese, and they all have their own relationship with each other. So not going to go off the rails there, but yeah, that is, as Lisa said, a long answer to a short question.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Next question I have, sort of to dive a little deeper into the Black and Asian Alliance Network. So in addition to you said it's like the past year, 2020, it feels more like the past, I don't know, millennium, in 2020, because I feel like I've aged way too much. So what are some of the things that you're hoping that, like, if you could elaborate further on, the creation of Black and Asian Alliance Network, or BAN, as I will call it for short, what do you hope to really see come out of this group? Like, do you foresee any like direct actions coming out, or petitions, things of that nature?
Yeah, when we first created BAN, there was, first of all, it was created in end of June 2020. You remember what was going on in June 2020, a millennia ago. We had just had George Floyd happen in the end of May. And at the same time, anti-Asian crimes were ramping up in the news. And this, and they continue to happen to this day. And more close to home, I think a Filipino lady got punched in the head on the San Diego trolley. I know in New York, a man was cut on his face. But that really hit close to home for me, because my Lola lives in San Diego, National City, and uses the exact trolley that the lady who got punched, the Filipino lady that got punched, my Lola is 85. So, this is very, very scary. And so it's out of that. I don't even think it's out of that fear, but it's out of that concern and out of that care that I really want to pull people together when there is so much going on to try to pit and wedge our communities apart and have us at the necks of each other. So the group came together in June, and we had Zoom call after Zoom call. We wrote up a declaration, mission, vision, and drew up documents complete with committees. And there are too many people to shout out right now that put in hours and hours of work, over 500 hours combined of work, to create almost like a constitution of how we would operate if we decided to become, an established organization in real life. So we've laid the groundwork for that. In the past 9 months, it's mainly been a Facebook group, and we've had very, very enlightening conversation. It has been tense at times. People have infiltrated. We're big enough to have been infiltrated by trolls and people who want to sow seeds of dissension. We grew from 0 to 3,000 people in 1 week, and then from there it's gone up to 4,000 over the past few months. And so aside from just being a Facebook group, we do have the groundwork laid. And I personally would like to see efforts, boots on the ground, going around, bringing people from the group together in the New York area and everywhere else. If we assign people like different, areas to like clean up neighborhoods, or to find businesses to donate to, or to, if in a non-pandemic time, patronize a restaurant that we could all jump for, bar hop, things like this. Lots and lots of ideas. In the immediate future, we're looking at producing a podcast because that is my comfort area. So I think a lot of good conversation will come from that project, and some video content as well.
Wow, that is wow. Over 500 hours of collective work. That is wow. English is hard for me. I can't talk right now. That's a lot. Wow. And then last little bit of question I have before we move to the open floor. So you kind of flowed right into this one. So thank you for that. What are some action items that you would like the outside community, or those new or thinking about joining BAN? What are some action items you think we should be prioritizing right now?
For new members, what action items, let's see. I would say come with an open heart and open mind. We have been taught so much about different people in the world that is either just not true or not the whole story. For instance, like I said earlier, when we talk about quote Asians, well, like who are quote Asians? It's so much more deep and complex than that. And then from anybody from the Asian side, I would say, what do you think of when you think of Black people? or Black Americans or descendants of Africa. Like, it shouldn't be stereotypes that you see on TV or in the news or in the movies. Again, it is so much deeper than that. Someone recently asked within the group, like, what is Black culture? They were just asking about Black culture, and they made a very interesting, they established their position on what they thought it was, Black culture, that is. And immediately I was like, is this a troll or are they serious? And so I would, as I ask myself, I ask others that are planning to be in the group or in the group to extend grace for people to learn, but also know the difference between a troll and someone that is genuinely trying to learn. So open hearts, open minds, and the possibilities are endless.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Jonathan. And now we're going to transition right into our open floor portion. So I'm going to spotlight both of our esteemed speakers. Bada bing, bada boom, Icon Technology. And I'm going to scroll through the Facebook. I talk with my mom now. Scroll through the Facebook. And let's see, what questions have people posed?
We did have one question for Lisa from the Zoom chat. There was a question about how, Lisa, you were able to manage learning music directly from, tradition bearers in Mindanao, and also balance that with the education and also your job.
Well, I think for me, the first time so I learned from some of the other members of the dance troupe, including Noni Kiano, and my first trip back to, and Linda Bonisil, when she came to visit the United States from the Philippines. And then I went to the Philippines with poetry in, I can't remember when, but we went back there and went to Cotabato and essentially for a music lesson, right? I think for me, I learned a lot from watching the musicians work with each other and you just kind of, because it is an oral tradition, you listen, you hear, you kind of immerse yourself in it, and then you really, it's through mimicry, honestly, is how you learn from oral tradition. And I think one of the things that's interesting for me is like watching Malika, who she started learning Kulintang just, because she grew up with it kind of all around her constantly. And that's really how a lot of the musicians in the Philippines learn in their communities, is that it's there constantly. And so they can learn it from almost osmosis. It's hard not learning it. It's harder to learn it from a Western perspective than it is because it is an oral tradition. You have to kind of sit at the knee of a Kulintang master, and they show you what to do, and then they correct you, and I think being there and being present allows you to learn it a lot more easily. I think the challenge for me is obviously, when you are working or you're far away from the group and you're not really kind of in it regularly, it's harder to learn it or to stay or to not get rusty. So because like with everything, you have to continually practice it to be good. So I have my little Kulintang here though that I play occasionally. So
Do you still play it while you're over there as well?
not as much, because I think the neighbors would get really, really annoyed.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
So yeah.
And just scrolling back, I think there was a question for Jonathan. If you could touch a little bit more about maybe when you were growing up, how you identified yourself. Were you comfortable mentioning to others if you were Black and Filipino, or was it more divided when you were growing up?
Yeah, I always identified as Black and Filipino. It and that didn't seem like such a big deal to me. I was born in 1984, so I'm a 90s kid and an 80s baby. And so either I was oblivious to what the intention was behind the question, but I always got the question, what are you? Or what are you? Or you must be mixed with something. And I would just very easily say like Black and Filipino. And a lot of people would I should specify, I grew up in Southern California until I was about 13, and then moved to Mississippi. So you know, I assumed everybody knew what Filipino was, but some people didn't know what Filipino was. And so I'd be like, yeah, it's like a country in Southeast Asia, like islands right off of the coast of wherever, you know, China, or like across the sea from Vietnam by Japan, somewhere over there. And this is me as a kid, of course. And it was always just, it was a regular question, but I think, you know, I guess I assumed that that was a question that everybody asked everybody, and it wasn't until later on in life that I realized, oh yeah, it's because I probably look different. And if it wasn't a direct question like that, it was, oh, you must be mixed with something. And it's like, oh, okay, so like this is actually a thing that people look at, right? And this is kind of what prompted me to even do the work of like explaining to people who I am through YouTube, because it was such a common thing. There are a whole bunch of common things that at least a whole bunch of things that were common to me that I didn't realize were not common to everyone else, like eating chicken adobo or like eating rice with every meal. I did not know that everybody didn't know what chicken adobo was, or like didn't eat rice every day. So I might have been oblivious, but I didn't have a problem identifying growing up. When I started realizing the reasons behind the questions and things, then as I started explaining to others and letting them know, you know, unprompted, then it turned into an argument of like, well, you are this or you are not that. And that's a whole other level of things that you can find videos of me talking about, but on my YouTube. But it you know, in adult life, it has been a little tug of war with just internet people in general, trying to tell me or others like myself what we are and what we aren't, and is you know, can be evidenced and shown in how people even treat folks in higher scene spaces, like celebrities who might identify a certain way. I thought I came up for myself in 2008 with the name Blasian, but I knew that that was a word that had existed before, and lots of people have used it since 2008. But even with Tiger Woods, it was Cablinasian, and then he got a lot of ire for that because, again, people were trying to tell him how he was identifying and what he cared about in his life. And it's like, y'all don't know Tiger Woods. You don't know his life. You don't know how he grew up or what he was thinking. But because he is identifying this way, it's an issue. So I appreciate the question. And again, long question, long answer, short question.
Thank you. And then I guess just to add on to that, or I guess in general, there seems to be a lot of anti-Blackness within the Filipino or even Asian community as a general. So how are some ways that we can maybe think about talking about that issues within our own communities, and how do we, you know, impact and grow in a way that it's solidarity for both communities to come together?
Oh, it's a tough here, but you know, I think that the discussion starts at home. And I want to say right off the bat, because I'm a member of a few other groups that have this type of discussion, whether it's, you know, the larger one that everyone knows, subtle Asian traits, or even the side one, subtle Filipino traits. I've seen this discussion happen a lot. And it's the idea that anti-Blackness is an American thing, or that racism is an American thing. And why do Americans think that their issues should apply to the whole world? That's not true. The skin whitening industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And we have products over in all of the Asias that very much promote a culture of anti-Blackness, meaning very, very literally like not having brown skin. So when we think of, quote, white supremacy, we're not thinking of men on horsebacks wearing, we're not just thinking men on horsebacks burning crosses with white hoods. We're not thinking about just the Klan. We're thinking of saying that lighter is better. That's not the case. You know, oh, get back inside, you're going to get dark. No, like, let the kids be dark. There's nothing wrong with having brown skin. And I think that that could be a very easy starting point for these types of discussions. I do want to give credit to Filipinos. I feel like just my experience that with the Black community and the Filipino community, there doesn't seem to be as much ire between the communities. And I mean, that's my biased and personal experience. But again, I do investigate and have a lot of these conversations and sit in and lurk on a lot of conversations with other communities. And it's rough in some places. There are a lot of Black and Filipino people. There are a lot of Black Korean people. So like, you make your own assumptions on what I'm saying there, but overall, we could be doing a lot better. And yes, to that person who said that in the comments, there is a lot of anti-Blackness throughout just the world. But I'm not going to mince my words if we're very much speaking about the Asian community right now, or the communities. Yes, it exists there, and we could do better.
But I also think we need to realize that, like, sometimes people do pit different groups against each other. I mean, that is not a new phenomenon. It's one of those things they did with immigrant communities in America from, the time immigrants started, from the early years. Like, the Irish would come in, and then the Italians would come in, and the Irish were like, you don't belong here. So it's one of those things where these groups are pitted against each other routinely as a way of dividing and conquering. And I do not think that's and that's a very American specific way of thinking about it, but it's done globally as well too. There's this whole, and Jonathan, you mentioned the whole, skin lightening industry, but like, just a lot of the culture and cultural ways that have gone throughout the world are ones that kind of, articulate whiteness as being preferable. And then you see that in comic books and movies and TV shows and cop dramas and all this stuff. And it's like, that kind of like cultural colonialism is pervasive, and it's something that I think you need to kind of consciously fight against that. And these groups are, Blacks and Asians, definitely there's, because there's also anti-Asian sentiment within the Black community too. I mean, it's not like it's all one, right? And so we need to realize, I think, that that's a tool to keep us down.
Definitely by design and intentional, especially we talk about the model minority myth and how, a lot of people don't understand, but a lot of people do understand. The way that I try to get people to understand model minority myth is if you have siblings and you know how the model minority myth works in theory, it's telling you, the younger, if you are the younger or the youngest, like, oh, your older brother did so well. He's a doctor, a lawyer now. Why can't you do that? So it's the same thing as white supremacy said, oh, the Asians, quote unquote, are such a good minority. They make the most money. They're the smartest. Why can't the rest of you brown people do that? And it's like, first, that harms, that's a double-edged, that's a multi-headed beast right there. Because number one, there are poor Asians. There are uneducated Asians. There are Asians living in poverty that are not smart, that are not doctors, that are not lawyers, that you're completely erasing with that narrative. And then at the same time, it is clearly pitting and wedging people against each other to fight over the little scraps that they throw. So yeah, totally agree with you, Lisa. It is intentional and by the design. And the difference between that which happened in the mid-1900s versus the early 1900s with the Irish is that the Irish were able to buy their way into whiteness because they already looked like it. So then we were able to say, Oh, okay. Now, they assimilated into whiteness. There are in the same token, when we talk about model minority myth, there are certain folks that do play into the model minority myth and try to buy and assimilate into whiteness, and it will never work because they're not Irish and they're not Italian and they don't look it. So we have to come to terms with that, and we need to team up and not fight each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Another question, we have multiple, but another question that was brought up is, do you think that it's important for us to learn, African Americans as well as Asian Americans, for us to learn more about our indigenous cultures? And then Lisa, if you want to talk a little bit more about how you felt when you were in Mindanao, was it a culture shock? How were you able to adjust while you were there? Whoever wants to start off with that.
I'll just say something about the indigenous part, and then I'll let Lisa go ahead and finish it up. For Black Americans, we don't have like literally our ancestors a few generations ago, our records were erased. We were broken up from our families and sold like animals. So we can't go back. Like you could take a 23andMe and be like, oh, your family is from, or an African ancestry, like this part of Africa, but there's no connection there, right? So it's very difficult for a lot of Black Americans, at least, and I'm sure a lot of other people of the African diaspora to even connect back to their indigeneity, if you will. One of the things that I will say that white supremacy has done is taught us to demonize and make whatever thing that is African or of African descent not Christian, not good, evil. We, just look at how they interpret Caribbean religions, voodoo, and other things like that. It's automatically the devil or not Christian or bad. So I would encourage even my own Black folks to really look into what they were taught growing up in terms of religion, very specifically, because we are a very religious people, some of us, a lot of us, and just investigate that. So yeah.
And on the other side of that, I do think that the way we assert the Mohawk Nation is not my nation, but it's like they're fighting. They have fought so hard to retain their language and their culture and their independent identity and their land, and that struggle to break those chains of like that mental colonization, that is, I think, one of the ways that we can be inspired by and kind of emulate in a certain way, in terms of like thinking about ourselves as there is a part of us deep down, we may not know it yet, that is not colonized, and we need to kind of like really, that mental or cultural colonization that Frantz Fanon talked about so much in Wretched of the Earth. But it's like that we can clear that away, and I think that the artists from these different indigenous communities who are continuing to reassert and assert their art and their and hold on to their cultural heritage can be an inspiration to all of us as we're looking to kind of like, break those mental shackles. And that's kind of how I think about it. As for the last question, how I felt about going to the Philippines, it was one of the things that was interesting the first time I went. It wasn't so much the last time, but the first time I went, a lot of people were like, "Oh, do you want to lighten your skin?" Or like I had, several people that were like, oh, because I was trying to get sun because, I'm always in the lab. I was like, what's it like to be outside? So I wanted to be out in the sun, and everybody was like, no, you'll get dark. And this was many years ago. And the last time I went, not so much. So I kind of do feel like there's some changes a little bit even happening there. Maybe it was just the people I was around, but I just feel like there's beginning to be this idea that, there's many different ways to be beautiful and be proud of yourself and your culture. And it doesn't have to, there's not this one light, attainable way of being, to be proud of yourself. So that's one of the interesting things that I came away with from the last trip to the Philippines.
Well, thank you so much for both of you for speaking. I think there were a lot of interesting points that I didn't even think about before that were brought up. And I feel like with having different people, different narratives come together, it definitely helps to make sure that we are staying intact with everyone, making sure that we're not imposing certain thoughts about what a community or what a person is going through, and being able to hear each other out before we make those assumptions. I do encourage those who still have comments and questions, if it's not left in the Facebook chat or on Zoom, to drop it off to me, Patty, Jerome, or Poetry, just so that we can continue the discussion of this topic and that this is something that we continue to fight towards. If Poetry is suggesting, Tita Loida, if you would like to speak a little bit before we go into the announcement and closing, is that okay with you?
No, I was very interested with the comments, especially of Jonathan, because my children are African Filipino. And because I know from history and present events that United States, they won't consider you. I will just create, bring them up as African American, knowing that their mother is Filipino. But it seems that negating the Philippines of my children made them a little lopsided. And now my daughter to say, you never told us about Jose Rizal. I had my husband who had to tell me, who had to say what, who had to eat Rizal and all things like that. So, assumption, or I made that that presumption that because America will consider them only as African Americans, so I don't confuse. They don't get, am I Filipino? Am I African? So, and from young Filipina married to an Afro-American, that they insist that both cultures be taught to their children. So, Jonathan, you came to that on your own, didn't you?
It's just like they say, what is the famous phrase? If I see far, it's because I stand on the shoulders of giants. So there's a lot of people in the community talking about this. And even if not in the most, not with the most positive examples, like you just said, because I know that people of my mom's generation over and over again, example after example. We didn't learn the language, for instance, Tagalog or Filipino. I know that there are many different languages in the Philippines, so I don't want to single anyone out. But we didn't learn the language, and then that's even magnified with all of my Asian community friends. So there are people my age that when I was in school in Southern California specifically, an entire generation of Asian American kids that don't know their parents' language. I think Amy Tan writes about this in a lot of her novels, especially having grown up in the Bay Area where there are a lot of Black and Asian people. So it's definitely a thing, right? It's definitely a thing that parents had to make a decision. And again, it's because of the thought, how will my children be received? Like you said, there is one side of the coin of, well, they're going to look at my children as African American, so I might as well just do that. But then there's also the uglier side of the coin. I mean, that's already an ugly side of the coin, but there's the uglier side of, well, I might give them an accent if I teach them this, or, then they might not get a job, things like this. So you're living in fear of white supremacy. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. And yeah, I totally agree with you.
Thank you. And for Lisa, I am just admiring your ability to recognize the beauty of indigenous culture, meaning a culture that has not been influenced by Western civilization. And as I'm watching at the beginning of our program, the tausug, how beautiful are the costumes, and the very, very elemental, as the first woman singing, you could almost feel like you're transported to the beginning of the earth. I mean, it is so, the only word, primeval. And so I do appreciate that you saw that and devoted yourself to it because of its purity of purity of culture.
And I feel so fortunate to have been part of Kanding Sindaw and help to broaden the reach of these different indigenous groups to a much broader audience throughout the world. And it's an ongoing. I think the other thing that makes Kanding Sindaw special is that it's not just like kind of bringing the art, but it's also kind of trying to say, we have to remember these artists and remember the communities that they come from and where they're living now, and how can we help them live through kind of the trauma of the experiences and problems that they're having currently now in the Philippines. So it's not just about kind of exoticizing or kind of remembering the history of these tribes, but also recognizing that these are people that are here, that are existing today with struggles that need support, and that we can, as they lift us up and as they ground us, we also can help lift them up and support them as well.
Yeah, it is very unfortunate that because of lack of resources, that our Lumad, the indigenous tribes in the Philippines, are just totally overlooked and murdered, because where they live are full of national treasures, meaning they either have gold or nickel or oil. So and there's no one that's taking notice except for Kanding Sindaw and Pottery, and you, Lisa. It's very it's very hard. It's very hard to see that they are that that it's happening. They are our Filipino, our minority group that is totally overlooked.
Well, I do want to just say thank you to everyone who is joining us on Facebook, La Mama, and also within this Zoom meeting as well. I do want to wrap up the night with a few announcements before having everyone leave for the day or the night. I think it's everyone's nighttime. Or if Lynn is still here, I guess it's her day. But just a few announcements. Here are some links in terms of some things that we are helping out with Mindanao with the typhoon. Love for Marawi campaign that we've been having for the Marawi siege, and then also for the Lumad schools or the indigenous schools back in Philippines. And also there is a QR code that you can scan for more information on how to sign up for the weekend dance classes. That is every day, or not every day, but every weekend, Saturdays at 12 p.m. and Sundays at 6 p.m. And also there are some social media handles for you to link with Lisa Parker, as well as Jonathan, in case you want to touch base with them later on. And next slide, please. And here are some upcoming events that are happening. We'll also share this in our Facebook and also our Instagram posts, so that if you miss it tonight, we will make sure you won't miss it, because we'll be sharing it for sure. And I just want to thank everyone again for being here. Thank you for Lisa and also Jonathan, and also Tita Loida for having those really nice questions. And I mean, everyone for those really nice questions and comments. I think this has been the most active event thus far for the year, and would like to keep the activeness going. Before everyone does leave, though, we would like to get a picture of everyone in the Zoom call. So I'll just be screenshotting my screen for the video, which I know is a little odd, but that's what we're doing now for web stuff. So whoever's comfortable, if you would like to share your screen or your video. I think everyone's here. Yeah, everyone's here. Okay.
Just want to say thank you to everyone. Tita Loida, Lisa, Jonathan, and the hosts, Patty, Jerome, and Vivian, and all the people in the audience. Just want to say thank you, everyone.
I guess I'll count to 3, and then we can pose or whatever we do. All right, 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you so much. Make sure to follow us and Lisa and Jonathan as well, just to stay up to date with everything that we're doing, and definitely keep the discussion going. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Bong salamat.
Thank you.